The day my ex-husband and the woman he left me for walked into my office asking for jobs was the day I finally realized karma doesn't always come fast. But when it arrives with perfect timing. 5 years earlier, he had looked me straight in the eyes and told me I was old, boring, and holding him back from the life he deserved. Then he walked away with a woman nearly 15 years younger than me, leaving me devastated, humiliated, and convinced that everything I had built was gone forever. But life has a strange way of turning the tables. Now they were sitting across from me in a conference room, nervously clutching resumes, while I was the CEO making the hearing decisions. And honestly, I still wonder sometimes if I handled it the right way. So tell me, if the person who destroyed your life suddenly needed your help years later, what would you have done? 5 years earlier, my life looked completely different. My name is Rachel, and at the time I was 38 years old. I had been married to my husband, Daniel, for 14 years. We had built a comfortable life together. We weren't rich, but we had a nice house, steady careers, and what I thought was a solid marriage. Looking back now, I realize there were warning signs I ignored because I trusted him completely. Daniel had always been charming. That was one of the things I loved about him when we first met. He could walk into a room and instantly make everyone like him. But over the years, that charm slowly turned into arrogance. He became obsessed with appearances. He started spending more time at the gym, buying expensive clothes, and talking constantly about feeling young again. At first, I thought it was a harmless midlife crisis. Then he started working late more often. Then he started hiding his phone. Then he stopped looking at me the way he used to. I remember one evening sitting across from him at dinner while he stared at his phone and smiled. Not at me, at whatever message had appeared on his screen. "Who keeps making you grin like that?" I joked. He immediately locked the phone. Nobody. That single word should have told me everything. A few months later, I found out exactly who nobody was. Her name was Madison. She was 24 years old. She worked at Daniel's company. I discovered the affair completely by accident. Daniel had left his laptop open while taking a shower. A message notification appeared. I wasn't snooping. I genuinely was. But when I saw a heart emoji followed by "I miss you already," my stomach dropped. I clicked, and my entire world shattered. There were hundreds of messages, photos, plans for weekends they spent together while he told me he was traveling for work, conversations about me, conversations where they laughed about how clueless I was. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was reading the way he described me. "She's let herself go. She's boring. She doesn't understand me anymore." I sat there staring at those words while tears rolled down my face. 14 years. 14 years, reduced to a few cruel sentences. When Daniel came downstairs, he found me sitting at the kitchen table with the laptop open. I'll never forget the look on his face. Not guilt. Not shame. Annoyance. Like I had become an inconvenience. He didn't even try denying it. Instead, he sat down and sighed. "Rachel, maybe this is for the best." For the best. Those words still make my blood boil. He told me he was in love with Madison. He told me he hadn't been happy for years. He told me he deserved a chance to be truly happy. Then came the sentence that nearly broke me. "She makes me feel alive again." As if I had somehow spent 14 years making him feel dead. Within 2 months, he moved out. Within 6 months, they were living together. Within a year, they were married. Meanwhile, my life completely fell apart. The divorce drained my savings. The house had to be sold. Mutual friends chose sides. Some people actually blamed me. I spent months wondering what was wrong with me. Was I too old? Too boring? Too predictable? The worst nights were the lonely ones. The nights where I replayed every memory searching for the moment everything went wrong. Then one evening, something changed. I was sitting alone in my tiny apartment, staring at old photographs, when I suddenly realized something. I had spent an entire year grieving a man who never deserved me. I was mourning a version of Daniel that no longer existed. And while I was stuck in the past, life was moving forward without me. That realization didn't magically fix everything, but it gave me direction. The next morning, I got up and made a decision. If my old life was gone, I would build a better one. I threw myself into work. I enrolled in business courses. I started networking. I took risks I never would have taken before. For years, I had helped run projects behind the scenes while other people took credit. Now I stopped waiting for permission. I pitched ideas. I pursued leadership positions. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. Slowly, things began changing. A promotion led to another opportunity. That opportunity led to a partnership. The partnership evolved into a startup. The startup became successful faster than any of us expected. 3 years later, I was running my own company. 5 years later, that company had expanded across multiple cities. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. And the funny thing was, by then I almost never thought about Daniel anymore. Until the morning, he walked back into my life. It started with a hearing meeting. My HR director handed me a stack of final round applications. I was reviewing candidates when one name made me freeze. Daniel Harper. At first, I assumed it had to be someone else. Then I saw the photo. My heart nearly stopped. It was him. Older. More tired. But definitely him. I stared at the application for several minutes. Then I saw another name attached to the same recruitment batch. Madison Harper. I actually laughed out loud. The universe couldn't possibly be this dramatic. Apparently it could. Their previous company had collapsed after major layoffs. Both were unemployed. Both were desperately searching for work. And somehow both had applied to my company. That's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and think about it for a moment. Imagine someone completely shattered your life, humiliated you, and walked away without remorse. Then years later, they needed something from you. Would you help them? Would you get revenge? Or would you simply walk away? Comment below what you would have done because I genuinely didn't know what the right answer was. For 2 days, I debated whether to cancel the interviews. Part of me wanted nothing to do with them. Another part wanted them to see exactly how much my life had changed. Eventually, curiosity won. I approved the interviews. The day arrived. I watched through the glass wall as Daniel and Madison entered the reception area. Neither recognized me immediately. 5 years had changed me too. I was healthier, more confident, more successful. Most importantly, I was happy. When they were escorted into the conference room and I walked in, both of their faces went completely pale. The silence was incredible. Daniel looked like he'd seen a ghost. Madison looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "Rachel," Daniel finally whispered. "Good morning," I replied professionally. The interview lasted almost an hour. And honestly, it was one of the strangest experiences of my life. Daniel spent most of the meeting avoiding eye contact. Madison barely spoke. Neither acknowledged our history. Neither apologized. They acted as though we were strangers discussing employment opportunities. When the interview ended, Daniel lingered behind. "Can we talk privately?" I considered saying no. Instead, I agreed. The moment the door closed, his entire demeanor changed. "I had no idea this was your company." I gathered that. He rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "You've done really well." I smiled politely. "Thank you." Then came something I never expected. Regret. Real regret. Daniel admitted their lives hadn't turned out the way they imagined. The excitement had faded. The relationship had become complicated. Financial struggles created tension. Career problems created more tension. The fantasy eventually became reality. And reality wasn't nearly as exciting. Then he looked at me and said something that stunned me. I made a mistake. 5 years earlier, hearing those words would have meant everything. Now they meant nothing. Because I no longer needed them. I no longer needed validation. I no longer needed closure. I had already moved on. Still, I listened. Not for him. For myself. Because sometimes hearing the truth confirms how far you've come. Before leaving, he asked if I would consider hearing them. I told him I'd review all candidates fairly. And I meant it. For the next week, I wrestled with the decision. Some executives encouraged me to reject them immediately. Others argued that personal history shouldn't influence professional decisions. I reviewed their qualifications objectively. And the truth was uncomfortable. They were qualified. Very qualified. If I rejected them solely because of personal feelings, I would become the kind of leader I never wanted to be. So I made my decision. I hired them both. Not because I forgave them. Not because I forgot what happened. But because I refused to let my past control my future. The first few months were awkward. Very awkward. Daniel reported to a department manager several levels below me. Madison worked in a different division. We rarely interacted directly. When we did, everything remained professional. Then something unexpected happened. People started noticing how differently I handled leadership compared to the executives they'd worked under before. I believed in transparency, accountability, respect, the exact qualities Daniel had failed to show me years earlier. Over time, employees began trusting me deeply, including Daniel and Madison. One afternoon, Madison requested a meeting. I expected a work discussion. Instead, she closed the office door and immediately started crying. She apologized. Not the shallow kind of apology people give to ease guilt. A genuine apology. She admitted she had been immature. She admitted she believed everything Daniel told her. She admitted she never truly considered how much pain she helped cause. For nearly an hour, she spoke through tears. And for the first time, I saw her not as the woman who stole my husband, but as a flawed human being who made terrible choices. When she finished, I thanked her. Then I accepted the apology. Not because she deserved forgiveness. Because I deserved peace. A few months later, Daniel requested a meeting too. His apology was shorter, less emotional, but equally sincere. He admitted he had spent years convincing himself he was justified. Only later did he realize he had destroyed something valuable for a fantasy. Again, I accepted the apology. And again, it wasn't for him. It was for me. The biggest surprise came nearly a year after they joined the company. They announced they were getting divorced. Apparently, years of resentment and disappointment had finally caught up with them. When I heard the news, I felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction. No joy. No revenge. Nothing. And that was when I realized I had truly moved on. Because revenge requires emotional investment. I no longer had any. The people who once broke my heart had become strangers. Their choices no longer affected my happiness. Their opinions no longer mattered. Their presence no longer controlled my emotions. That was the real victory. Not becoming their boss. Not watching their marriage fail. Not hearing their apologies. The real victory was building a life so fulfilling that the people who hurt me no longer occupied space in my heart. Today, my company continues growing. I'm engaged to an incredible man who treats me with respect every single day. I have friendships stronger than ever. I have confidence I never possessed during my marriage. And most importantly, I learned something I wish I had understood years earlier. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the thing that saves you. If Daniel had stayed, I might never have discovered what I was capable of. I might never have built my company. I might never have become the person I am today. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me ended up forcing me to grow. And for that, strangely enough, I'm grateful. So if there's a lesson in all of this, it's that someone leaving you doesn't mean you lost. Sometimes it means they lost access to the person you're about to become. Focus on yourself. Build your future. Let your success speak louder than your anger ever could. If you were on my side in this story, make sure to like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this. And most importantly, tell me in the comments, would you have hired them or would you have turned them away? I genuinely want to know. Thank you for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next one.